Hi there, and welcome to my alpha version bin for iOS. So while iOS wasn't necessarily the target demographic, um, I found it relevant to build for both platforms, especially with an appeal with a category that has such a wide appeal, such as saving money or tracking money and everything like that. Um, so yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and sign up with Ben here. So I have Firebase opened up over here so we can kind of see what's going on. Um, Really the only features that were left to implement were the transactional features where it would update the account whether you deposited or uh, deducted from the account, um, and the ability to show the graphs for iOS. Um, However, I got the interoperability of Dialogflow working. The library was written mainly in Objective-C, um, so it was a little bit of a challenge to get it to work inside the Swift version of the app. Um, so yeah, we'll just log in. And the fact that I had to kind of work out the kinks between the Objective-C and the Swift version made it so I couldn't get to the transactional features in time to implement them. However, everything else is working for the alpha version. So now this is a totally clean install, so we'll go ahead and create a totally new user here. So we'll just make up an email here. Oops. Gmail.com, and then we'll do test 1, 2, 3, 4. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we shall create our account. Okay, so now we are signed up with Ben, and we'll go ahead and refresh Firebase here to see the new account has been added. And we can see our account has just been added there. And now we will log into Ben. And so if we try and mess up on the email here, we should get a warning saying that it's not a valid email. And there we go, an invalid email. Got it. So we'll fix this email right quick. And we are now logged into Ben. So one of the kinks and the difference between the iOS and the Android version is iOS doesn't give you an audible sound whenever the device is recording or picking up your voice. This isn't too big of a deal for Ben because I put in a feature where it tells you that the device is listening to you whenever you make the sound. And then between the Android and iOS version, the Android version integrated the API integrated a lot more tightly with Android. Doesn't really surprise me because Dialogflow is a Google company, so it's a little bit more ingrained. The API has better access to the voice and recording on the Android side than it does the iOS side. For instance, we have to hit the tap to get my attention button every time we want to give a command and every time we're done giving a command. So for instance, I'll tap it to begin the listening, and then I'll have to tap it again in order for the request to be sent to the API, or to the Dialogflow API. So we shall say, "Hey Ben, what's up?"
Greetings.
And so that's just a caveat that we have on the iOS side, where we have to hit the button to begin the listening and hit the button to end the listening. And so if we go to the database here, we can see that our new account was written to the database here. So you see we don't have anything going on as far as collections, as opposed to my other account, which we'll log into and ask it some things. So yeah, let's go ahead and create an account. Create a new account.
What should this account be called?
Checking account.
How much was in this account?
$100.
Account created.
And so now we have the account created, and we'll update it over here in Firebase. See the updated account. Boom, $100 right there. And so now we can create our savings account. Create a new account.
What should this account be called?
Savings account.
How much should I put in?
$200.
I took care of it, boss.
Okay, so now we have the savings account created. And we can see here, I got the savings account and our $200. So now let's check to see how much was in our checking account, even though we already know what's in it. How much is in my checking account?
You have a total of $100.
And so the other thing I noticed about the iOS side is the response is much more fluid and much more natural compared to the Android side, where it's a little bit choppy. However, the picking up on what the user says is much more accurate on the Android side than it is on the iOS side. It took me a couple times to get some of the phrasing right, or it took a little bit for iOS to learn what I was saying before it started getting accurate with some of the commands I was giving. So just these little differences are kind of interesting to see between the two versions of the app. And so the other things that we have implemented, features that we have implemented here, is the change the email and the password. So let's see if we can go ahead and change those now. So we'll just update this email. Okay, so that email has been updated. And then for the password, we will do test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, password and email have been changed. So now if we go to the authentication side, we can see that that my carlton.cody@gmail.com has now been changed to carltoncody@rocketmail.com, which was just our change here. So we'll log out and we will log back in. Oops. And the error handling, if I had entered in a email account that wasn't in the database here, we would have gotten a. In fact, let's do that too. So we'll change that to Gmail, and we'll do test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and let's see what our error is. Okay, so you can see we don't have a user corresponding to that email. So now we will log in with our actual account. And we'll log in. And so now everything should be the same, so we should have $100 in our checking account. How much is in my checking account?
You have $100.
Okay, awesome. So we're totally working here. Been able to change the email password. So now we have our account from the Android version. So this was the one that I was doing the Android demo on, this account here. So let's go ahead and log out and log in to that account. And I honestly don't remember what password I used for that. So if need be, we will change the password. Okay, so I did remember the password, and we'll go ahead and hit the forget password as soon as we're done checking out if the data is reading from the other account. How much is in my checking account?
You have $61.34.
Okay, so that is the amount that I had when I finished the Android demo last week. So let's see how much we have in the savings account. How much is in my savings account?
There is currently $50.
Okay, cool. So as you can see, we can go between Android and iOS to keep track of our money and expenses. So last but not least, we'll go through the forgot password again. Okay, email. So what was the email? Carlton, Cody, 3. Email.com. Okay. Okay, so the email has been sent. We will go to my Gmail here. You get to see all my work emails and Amazon orders. Okay, so now we will update this guy here, and we will make it test 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we will not save that. And so now we should be able to log in. One, two, three, 4. With the updated password. And so as you can see here, that's all the features that I have implemented. It was pretty interesting to go from Android to the iOS side, especially with integrating the API. Even though it should have been a direct kind of transfer, because I would assume that the Dialogflow would have written the API to be almost exactly the same between the two platforms. There was actually some pretty big differences between the two. So it was pretty interesting to work out the kinks for the iOS side. I have to say that programming in Swift and getting this working in iOS was much easier, and I was much faster getting things accomplished on the iOS side than I was on the Android side. So I think in the future, I'll be using Kotlin, which is basically Swift for Android, almost exclusively, because I felt like I was much more productive writing in the Swift style kind of language than I was in the Android version. So yeah, that was my walkthrough of the iOS alpha. I hope you enjoyed it. It was awesome to build these platforms, and I really appreciate you giving me the week to get the iOS version up to the alpha stage. It was definitely educational trying to get the API to work on both platforms and to see the differences between how each platform handles the voice interaction and everything like that. So I hope you enjoyed it, and have a good night.